All right, guys, and welcome to season 2 of the Midfield 4 podcast, episode 1. If you're watching on YouTube, you will notice we are missing somebody, so I'm just going to address that before we get underway. He's not gone, don't worry. He's just doing his best Edison Cavani for impression, bit of annual leave when it matters most. But I know he'll be listening. He's on holiday at the minute, so I hope you're having a good time. Looking forward to having you back soon. So, it's the midfield free for now, so I'll introduce them. Matt, how are you doing?
Doing really well, thank you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Very glad to be back. And Tay, last but not least, how are you?
Spectacular, mate. It's been a while.
Stuff. Good
Overdue.
stuff.
New season around the corner.
Yeah, look forward to it. We've got a few topics to cover today. Going to be more transfer stuff today, and then we'll crack on with sort of season predictions next week, and then onwards from there. We'll be back to weekly now. We did have a little break with not as much to talk about, but from next week onwards, we'll be weekly episodes again, obviously with a lot more to talk about. So we'll get straight into it, and we will start by sort of addressing the elephant in the room a little bit, which is what's been going around the last sort of month or so, but especially in the last week, and that is the Cristiano Ronaldo situation, who is seemingly doing everything he can to get out of United, as he's gone back to England this week, held talks with the club. Doesn't seem like anything's changed. Problem for him is doesn't seem like anyone's interested, so he's not having the best time at the minute. Obviously, he is my favourite player of all time. It's not nice to hear. I'll expand on my thoughts in a minute, but I want to come to you two first as neutrals before I ramble on. So, Matt, first of all, I know you're a fan of his on the most part. So what do you make of this situation in general? Do you think he's right to want to leave, first of all?
It's a bit of a confusing situation, if I'm honest, because I think a big part is United playing Europa League, of course, but you got to think of it logically. It's going to be a short-term thing as it is, but no big club is going to, a Bayern or a Real or any of that type of side is really going to go for a player like Ronaldo. So then that leaves you with, I don't know, maybe a return to Portugal, but then you're talking about wage cut being big. And then another Premier League club like a Chelsea who's been linked doesn't seem too logical either. And I don't think United would want to be selling him to a Premier League club if they can help it. So I don't think there's many options for him. I don't really understand the whole thing. I mean, I saw an Athletic report, I think it was about an hour ago. And one of the things I did see was him wanting to catch up to Messi's record or something like that. And it's a bit crazy that like, I understand, you want to be competitive, you want the best, all that, but it is a bit crazy that that's one of your like foremost goals. It's a bit of a weird one. And I don't really understand it personally. Like, I'm not a big fan of United and how they're run at all at the moment from a neutral perspective. But I don't really know where he could be going. And Ten Hag, an exciting potential new future. Europa League, fair enough. It's not ideal, but I think it's just a really weird situation, which doesn't really add up. I don't know what you think, Tay.
It's a weird one. I hated the transfer when it happened, and I hate it even more now. But if we're talking party-wise, I can't blame Manchester United for bringing him back. I don't think it was the right move, but fairy tale story. Came back to England, had a good season. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know where you guys stand on this, but looking at it from last season, I remember when the news broke that he was signing. Maybe I'm being slightly biased there, but even with Ronaldo in that team, that looked a team way, way, way off titles for me. And if Ronaldo's leaving on the basis now that he wants to compete for the big ones, even if it's league titles, which in my opinion United are still years away from, why did he go there in the first place? So he sort of shot himself in the foot massively. But I don't know. I don't blame him for leaving. He's a once in a generation player, and he does deserve to play Champions League football. I think everyone will admit that. But he's not the high. He's not the highest profile anymore. I don't know where logically he can go. I think everyone's we had the same thing with Messi when Barcelona couldn't afford him. I think everyone was like, oh well, who can afford him? PSG, So could be on the cards, but I think he will end up staying at United. But I hate the move in the first place, and I just don't like it now.
I think you've got to be logical. I'll just quickly say as well. I think you've got to be logical about things. Not only is his wage a problem, but the guy is 37.
Yeah.
Like, no. This is what I was saying about the big clubs. No serious club, or not serious club. No, like, club is going to be spending tons of money and wages. I guess the economic factor, shirt sales and stuff.
But I think he gives you a pedigree and a factor that you can't buy on the market. You've never been able to buy, and you might not be able to buy again. And for teams like Man City, PSG, who are chasing the first European title, I think he gives you something, even for a year or two. There's people completely writing him off, saying, "Oh, MLS and Portugal, that's a load of rubbish. I don't want to hear that."
I think the difficult thing is I know you say we were way off titles, and I do agree. I didn't expect us to win any titles last season or anything like that, but I don't think anyone expected us to not be in the Champions League the season after. So that's just a sticky one for him. I think he probably thought even if they don't win the league this year, they're at least going to be in the Champions League again. And I don't think anyone would have predicted us not to be in the Champions League based on who we'd signed. Obviously, a couple of weeks into the season, it did become apparent that it wasn't going to work. But when he signed, I don't think anybody thought that was going to be the case. But I don't blame him in the sense of wanting to leave. I just think he could have handled it a lot better, as we didn't actually find out. I don't know whether he told the club before till about 6-7 weeks into the window, which means we've got very little time to sell him and find a replacement. I understand the fact him wanting to leave, but I sort of think if it comes to the point where it is now, where there isn't many suitors, I sort of unfortunately think he's just going to have to firm that and just get on with it. Because now in the likely scenario that he does stay, a lot of the fan base is already fed up of the situation, and he might not be as well received as he was last season in part. So
how much would you say that affects his overall legacy for you, or do you think that do you think that factors into if he does stay? Because I do think if he does stay, which you said is likely, he doesn't seem like the type of player to never not put in 100%.
Well, I don't think he'll down tools. I think he and I think if he does stay, we shouldn't use him in Europa. Just save him for the league. He showed in the second half of last season what he can do with more rest. One game a week, he's playing unbelievable football for his age. I do think if he bangs in a hat-trick first game, it's all we've forgotten about. I just will.
Yeah.
But if he starts the season and doesn't play very well, and he gets in a bit of a strop or whatever, fans will lose their patience, especially after what's happened this summer. And he is one of the players for the most of the fan base, and rightly so, to be fair, that most will defend him to the death. He's allowed to have a couple of bad games. People will still defend him, whereas that's obviously not the case with a lot of players. But what's happened now, that's the main example. But with what's happened this summer, that will definitely affect that. And I think he could have handled it a lot better. But, I do see that he's going to stay. And the reports have said that, Martial's going to lead the line first game of the season, even if Ronaldo's there. And to be fair, that's fair enough. Martial turned up to training, which is the bare minimum, played well in pre-season. Obviously, I don't want to touch on the family issues topic because that could well have been the case. You've got people speculating that it's not, but that's not my place to talk about. But, regardless whether it actually was family reasons or not, Martial's been playing well. The team's been playing well, so it's only fair that he does get the nod. But, I'm sure Ronaldo will be able to, earn his place back. He's got the right attitude to do that. And it's probably a bit naive of me, but I won't turn against him just because of how much, I've loved him over the years and that. And a lot of people will say it didn't make sense to bring him back, and I can't disagree logically, but from a romantic side of it, some of the experiences that he gave us as fans last season, for me, just as a football fan, that is worth it for me. I know, if you put everything into perspective, it's probably not, but the way I look at it, because I'm very biased towards him because of the big part he's played in my life as a football supporter, I will, give him another chance in a sense. And I don't know. Go on.
I was just saying, if Torres decided he was coming out of retirement, I'd have him up front for us 38 games a season.
Yeah, that's just what we're like as romantic football fans. But I'll be interested to see if he does stay, what he does say on the situation. And obviously, we will touch on that when it does happen. But I think it's quite clear he does want to leave and is essentially trying to force a move. But, like you said, realistically, there's no real clubs for him to go for. But I do find it pretty crazy how he's willing to join a club like Atletico Madrid. That's just mental to me, because then you're targeting your legacies with the two clubs that you're basically known for in Manchester United and Real Madrid, which is just mental to me. And obviously, he nearly went to Manchester City last summer, so he tried to do it again. Me as being ridiculously biased towards him probably is or trying to ignore that for the most part. But it's a bit of a sticky one. It's not nice to hear, but I would like it to be resolved ASAP. And I mean, if he does go, I've got no idea who we're going to get in, because the two strikers that I would have looked at realistically are both now gone. I've said before that I'd like João Felix as a potential replacement, but whether that happens, he's a very expensive player. a player which I don't know whether United would be willing to take the risk on or not. But I do hope that this has a line drawn under it soon, and we can just move on with our season, because for the most part, the preparation for the season has been pretty good. We've been good in pre-season. We made some good signings so far. Obviously, do need a few more. For the most part, it's looking all right. But this situation is just hanging around like a bad smell, and it does need to be addressed ASAP for me. So I guess we'll see how that unfolds. But if we was to go, we are going to be incredibly short up front. So I've no idea what we are going to do. I think we're short up front regardless, but we'll see how it pans out. But yeah, that's that addressed. And obviously moving towards the end of the window, we just wanted to have a small chat about certain clubs which may be slightly worried about the lack of transfer business or players they've lost. With today it's 8 days till the season starts, and obviously you have got a bit longer left in the window, but ideally you want to get all your names in early. So mainly on Premier League here, any names that you want to throw forward as potential teams that would be worried?
I said Leicester before we started recording. Only team in the league to not make a signing so far, and lacklustre end of the season last year. Questions, at least from my end, about the manager Brendan Rodgers. I don't think they had enough. They've actually lost in their squad. A valuable player like Lookman, who they haven't decided to keep. I don't know where they're going to finish. They've got Asian players, and don't get me wrong, there's a good squad there, and they weren't riddled with injuries last year, but you would think and hope that they would kick on, especially with the news coming out with Kasper Schmeichel potentially leaving as well. That's the club captain gone a week before the season starts. What is going on over there? I've no idea.
The thing is, I sympathise with them when you say with injuries, but at the same time, they've had this problem for 4 or 5 years or however long. So you either look at the training methods being used, is this too aggressive for players, or you have to spend more or be more specific with profiles for players who are used to that, or you look at, all right, are we actually that prepared? And I mean, Leicester signing no one so far only goes with the answer being no.
Can we just appreciate as well? I do think it's too late for this to happen. I think this is something that will happen next year for a few of these players. But the Tielemans links have never gone away with Arsenal this summer. The Kasper Schmeichel, that's I'd say two of their top, 4 players, best players gone a week before the season with no incomings as well.
Fofana's been linked with Chelsea as well.
Yeah, and if they came knocking, I don't really see how we'd end up staying. So I'm very confused, very, very confused. I don't know if you guys have seen any links for Leicester signings, but I forgot they existed.
Too much, but I do completely agree, and I'm intrigued to see where this Leicester project is supposedly going, because if you turn back the clock to about 2 years ago, they were seriously looking like they were going to, threaten to break into the top 6, every single season. I think they 5th 2 seasons in a row. But obviously last season, a very underwhelming season, mainly because of injuries. I know they snuck up to 8th, but realistically, they weren't the 8th best team in the league. They just put a decent run of results towards the end. Yeah. Papered over the cracks a lot, say, not even a little bit. But again, they're a long way off now, even the likes of Newcastle and West Ham. And like I said, they haven't made any moves in the window, and that a lot of their players are linked with a move away. I mean, also won't be long until Jamie Vardy is faded out of the side. I mean, they have got replacements there for him in the likes of Patson Daka, which is good business. But like you said, they've got 2 of their key players looking to go. They haven't made any signings. These players are still the same injury-prone players that let them down last season. As a fan, it would be sort of frustrating. FA Cup, Community Shield winners, league winners not that long ago. They want to be up there challenging for Europe, and I've seen a lot of people putting them in lower mid-table in their predictions. And at this point, I can't really disagree. I don't think they'll be in any relegation trouble, but they're certainly not looking like they're going to be anywhere near the top.
I think I had them 13th, to be honest.
To be honest, at the minute, that's probably
based on what I've seen so far. And you just also mentioned West Ham and Newcastle as well, who I don't think have done enough. I think obviously Scamacca is literally just signed this week, but I think they could do with a bit more. Is it Christian Agard as well?
Yeah.
Didn't he get an injury already?
You've got a lot of time to go, but I think for certain clubs, I don't think Newcastle and West Ham are in dire straits. I still think their squad's looking decent enough. But as for Leicester, I think I can't see them being anywhere near the top 6, 7, which is where they want to be. Another one I want to throw in, and a team that I think is in serious trouble this year. They have just made 2 signings today and yesterday, but I still think Everton are in massive trouble next season.
Definitely.
last season, second half of last season, they were abysmal. Like, there's no sugarcoating that at all. Lampard did well to get them over the line, but they've lost their best player, and without that player, I'm sure they would have been relegated last season. They've bought in James Tarkowski on a free, to be fair, good business. They've bought in Ruben Vinagre, a bit of a strange one, but again, backup left back, not too deep. Just bought Dwight McNeil today, which looks a good deal, but, you know, his output last season wasn't great. He does look promising, but he's never really kicked on from his very younger days. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. Don't think it's a bad buy as such, but I just think they're in serious trouble. I don't think they've strengthened enough. Obviously, there is still time, but these are still the same players that massively let them down last season. Again, a squad that struggles massively with injuries is still the same players. They've bought one defender to try and solve a back line, which was quite frankly atrocious last season. You know, Richarlison was a massive player for them, and if Dwight McNeil is the replacement for Richarlison, I know that sort of player for Everton is so difficult to replace, but you know, one Calvert-Lewin injury at the start of the season, based on their squad right now, and where on earth are they going to finish?
I think with Everton as well, like, I really think Lampard took the complete wrong job out of any other job he could have taken.
100%.
Because you look at his Chelsea days and everything, not Chelsea days in the playing career, Chelsea managing career or Derby or whatever. It's far more of a forward-flowing, move, just like younger oriented players. You look at this Everton side, and not to take much from pre-season either, but they play the exact same way of Route 1, and that's because they don't have the quality elsewhere to do anything. You remember what they did, how they played before that when they lost to the likes of Spurs 5-0. You know, they were trying to play free-flowing football, and they don't have the squad for it. And I think Everton, they will definitely be in for an even worse season than last if they don't address these issues. And the thing is, we've got the Premier League starting next Friday or next Saturday for most sides, or Sunday. This isn't, I understand the transfer window only closes early September, but you want to have your signings on a pre-season, because we all talk about, the reason X player didn't do so well previously, during COVID times, could potentially be they didn't have a pre-season. And I think that's one thing you really look at and forget about with even some players who are kicking on now, or, the likes of, I don't know, new signings, maybe someone like a Sancho, he didn't really have a period to get going. It had to just be instant. So I think you want to have your new signings on a pre-season. You want to have them training from early and getting adjusting to the league. You don't want it just to be all right, well, you maybe are in for the first game of the season, or you might be in for the second game. It's just not. Yeah.
No, one more thing on Everton as well. Obviously, they say if you're old enough, you're good enough. If you're good enough, you're old enough. The whole Mourinho thing. But if you look at where they're predicted next season, I'd have them in and out of the relegation scrap. I'd have them somewhere down there. It might just be an old-fashioned way of thinking about it, but you want experience down there. You need your other players. I'm thinking about it now. Their squad age, where is their experience other than Pickford? I mean, Coleman's there, but he's being phased out this year. But Nathan Patterson, who's about 20, who's, by the way, snagging FPL if you're playing that this year. You've got, I think he's 20. You've got Ben Godfrey, slightly rash, top player, but a lot to go. Tarkowski is a great signing. Michaelenko, 21, 22. They've just signed Dwight McNeil, 22. Anthony Gordon's like 19. I don't even know how old Iwobi is anymore. I don't want to give him the Lingard treatment. But there's not, I don't know who's in there, to grab the game.
The only player, there wasn't many players that really took that relegation scrap by the scruff of the neck. The main one was Richarlison, who, I said about 5 minutes ago, I'm sure they would have gone down without him. And, that Crystal Palace game, which kept them up, they still went 2-0 down, and they were very lucky in a sense to get back. They ran it to the wire. They were very lucky at times. I remember they got that win against Chelsea, but if it wasn't for heroics from Jordan Pickford, that isn't going to be a win. And I just think they will rode their luck massively. And fair play to Frank for getting it over the line. Obviously, the fans played a huge part as well. I experienced that firsthand, and they definitely did. It was crazy. But they can't ride that for the whole of next season. And they really need to use this summer to pull themselves away from that. And I know they've got a new stadium to pay for, and we know how difficult that is. But, this is the club's future on the line here. This was the summer that they really needed to spend and pull away from any sort of relegation trouble in the long run. As it stands, I don't think they've done that. But again, this is a difficult topic to speak about because there is a bit of time to go. But if I was an Everton fan right now, I would be slightly concerned. Who's
first sacked, Lampard or Rodgers?
I think Rodgers, honestly, right, I didn't say too much with Leicester. I think the thing with Leicester, I'll just quickly say, from a few years ago, I think their problem was they're looking really good squad wise, but they're like just need to get rid of Rodgers and they'll be okay, I feel like. But now it's got to a point where other teams have caught up to them with business or overtaken them. So it's no longer like, wow, Leicester have this really thick squad of really good players. It's a case of they have this good squad with quite a few star players leaving, as we've mentioned, or potentially leaving. And, you've got older players, leaving, or loan players, etc. And if ultimately in the Premier League, if you don't invest year in, year out, you'll be left behind unless if you're just incredibly well prepared one summer or go all in on a summer. That's why you see, the likes of City even. They've sold Jesus, Sterling, Ferran Torres, they sold in January, signed Haaland, they've adapted, they've changed their way of playing. Not to go a bit off topic, but I think that's massive, adaptation, constantly changing things up. Otherwise, you'll be left behind and you'll get caught up.
Yeah, completely agree. A couple of other teams I wanted to throw out there. Obviously, newly promoted. I think Bournemouth's lack of business is very concerning if they want to try and stay in the league. I think they bought in Ryan Fredericks and Joe Rothwell, I believe, and that's it so far. That's not going to keep them in the league. I don't know if they're just going for this Norwich model of just taking the parachute payments. But looking at their team now, I think they were quite lucky to get promoted in the first place, especially second half of the season. They sort of like staggered over the line and they haven't strengthened at all. Obviously, they haven't really lost anyone, but they're not looking very strong. And at the minute, I have them rooted to the bottom of the table if nothing changes. Obviously, don't want to spend too much time on that. So obviously, there's still more time. I think my team, United, have still got a lot of work to do, to be honest. I think the 3 signings that we've made have been good. But I'm sure you can listen to an old episode where I'd have been asked where would I be prioritising the summer. And a centre-back, left-back and another attacking midfielder would probably be 4th, 5th, 6th on my list. I don't think we've addressed the main issues. I mean, we all know who our main target is, which is still dragging on unbelievably. And I think that's out of our hands now, it may happen, it may not. It's out of our hands. We've agreed a deal. He's willing to come, supposedly, if he's paid this £17 million, which he's owed. So that's, again, out of our hands. I'm still pretty confident it will get done. And maybe the club know that too, because I want to speak about the lack of alternative options that we seem to have. Doesn't seem like there's any. And if for any reason this deal doesn't go through, that's the number one position that we need to strengthen. And there are players out there that we could target, separately, maybe the likes of Ruben Neves. I know Yuri Tillemans has been thrown around. I'm not a massive fan of that, but just to see some names so we've got some sort of backup plan would be nice, because there's every chance this De Jong deal doesn't happen. But, still need another forward. At the minute, we've only got Elanga, Sancho, Rashford, Martial, and Ronaldo doesn't want to be there. So we're very short in those areas. If we don't buy anyone, we're heavily relying on the likes of Amad Diallo, maybe even Facundo Pellistri. These are players that probably aren't ready to play a lot of minutes. I mean, I wouldn't mind having the minutes here and there, but to play a big role in the squad, I don't think they're quite ready, which they would have to be if we got a couple more injuries. So I think another attacker and another midfielder is an absolute must for United. And if we're serious about trying to get near the top 4 this season, we can't just wing it and not buy players in those positions, because it will come back to haunt us. Because, United fans will say that Donny van der Beek or Eriksen could play in the pivot, but that's not going to happen. They're living in cuckoo land. So we need to bring somebody in to play in those roles. And I'm not one of those United fans who just blindly say McTominay, especially, is useless. I know Fred's getting a bit more respect now that he deserves. These players are not terrible, but as a pair, it is shown that we do need a bit more than that. I think they both possess qualities, but, we're not going to do anything serious if they're playing the majority of the games together. I think they both have their qualities, as I said, but we need more bodies in those areas. I like the signings we've made, but we've still lost 8 players and we've brought in 3. I mean, we need more. Just wanted to mention that quickly. So, I mean, I do trust that they'll do it. Fingers crossed. And I'm sick and tired of the transfer window now. So, hopefully De Jong gets done. But again, I think one more body, 5 bodies in isn't too bad. But right now, we definitely need more.
That's what I'll just quickly to add on the United thing. I think the problem is, particularly, even if United do get De Jong, I think it's far too much all in on a strategy. I'm sure, you can agree. You don't want to see De Jong playing as a lone 6 with, I don't know, Bruno and Fred ahead, or Eriksen and Fred ahead. You want it to see Frankie in a pivot or a bit further ahead where, he'd be best. You don't want him to just be shoehorned as a 6 just because you've only signed one midfielder. And I think it's important to note when you talk about the likes of Yuri Tillemans is you don't just need one midfielder. You've lost Juan Mata, you've lost Pogba, of course. You've lost Matic. You've got someone like Scott McTominay who's just not good enough for the club, and he's not showing any signs of development. No, take to him. And you need a 6. You need an 8. Of course, you adjust Ericsson, but you need like a 8 who can play in a pivot, like that Frankie type. And then, of course, a 6, which is rare on the market. So I think it is just important to realise quite how much United need to do in this market, and how much, with the season starting next week, it is quite reliant on either players coming back to form from, downing tools potentially last season. Who knows? I don't like to say that, but, we'll have to wait and see with that. Or just having to sign players, really, which I don't know if they'll do.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's not enough. And we've been playing Tellers in midfield in pre-season, which is, he shouldn't be playing anyway, never mind in midfield. But yeah, more needs to be done. But I'm calm for now. We've looked good in pre-season. I don't think that's too deep, but it's promising signs. But, first game of season in 9 days. We've been chasing our top target for the last 10 weeks now. Still no movement. If it's going to happen, great. If it's not, we need a backup. Long story short, because if we don't sign a single midfielder, that is a travesty, and it's going to cost us yet again for about the 4th or 5th season in a row. Don't know if there's any other clubs you guys want to throw out there before we move on.
Wolves again.
Yeah.
Especially now with
that one.
Especially with Raul Jimenez injured again. Like, he's out for like the first, what did they say, 8 weeks of the season?
4 to 8 weeks.
Fabio
4 to 8
Silva's
weeks,
just gone on loan too.
Yeah.
What
saw
do
an
you make
article
of
yesterday
him?
from the new Wolves correspondent for the Athletic, and he basically said that they are looking to bring names in, but they won't bring names in unless they're fit in the system or whatever.
Yeah.
And Bruno Lage is apparently, which I don't believe, willing to go into the season with the likes of Neto, Podence, maybe Juan covering that position.
I've heard that many a time.
That sounds like a cop out to me. That really sounds like a cop out.
Does that not sound awfully familiar of Bielsa's situation at Leeds, of having a lack of bodies, getting a bunch of injuries, and then saying that,
I think Bielsa means that though. Well, what I was saying is, I've heard that a lot of times from Klopp. We're not willing to budge. If he doesn't fit at the right price in the system, it won't happen. 9 times out of 10, when we're interested in a player, it does happen. And Wolves, I imagine, they're a bit like us. They like to keep their business quiet. I don't know how many articles you've seen linking players to Wolves this season, but I've seen one, which was to Nathan Collins from Percy at Telegraph.
Yeah.
So I think they will bring a few more players in. I don't know why they've left it so late, because it was
they are definitely doing things on the quiet, because I've seen, obviously with Wolves you get the odd Portuguese source linking players. I mean, they were linked to João Palhinha, who I think would have been a great pickup for them, but he was ready to join Wolves, but they wouldn't pay the extra money that Sporting wanted, which is pretty crazy, because I think he only went for about 18 million, which would have been a great pickup for their midfield to play with Ruben Neves, who looks like he is going to stay, which is obviously massive for them. He's their best outfield player by an absolute
he cried and clapped suddenly in the last game of the season.
And then no one came in. Sad time. But Palhinha would have been a great addition to them. But I think they almost saw him as a replacement, which for a club who I've said before on this show are apparently looking to break into the European spots, that doesn't sound like very ambitious to me. If they don't want to buy an £18 million player who's worth way more than that, in my opinion, unless they let go of their star player. And since we mentioned Wolves on the pod last time, which I think was about 5-6 weeks ago, they've signed one player, which is a good sign in Nathan Collins. However, centre-back wasn't exactly a position they were lacking in either. That's probably the one position he had enough players in. So I suppose that's.
I think the centre-back they've needed for a long while, to be honest. And I think apparently or at least in pre-season, they've been playing a 4. So if they go to a full-back, I mean, a lot of people, my concerns with Wolves, obviously squad depth and the poor attacking system. If they do go to a 4 in that attacking system, vastly improves, then that will, I guess, change a lot, particularly with Gibbs White and stuff.
Just say their last signing as well, Chiquinho, did tear his ACL this pre-season as well, who actually looked bright at the end of last season.
I mean, they can barely even name a bench at the minute.
No.
Like, their start 11 is still looking pretty good. You've got Sarr, who's a phenomenal goalkeeper. Semedo, who's injured at the minute, but when he's not fit, Johnny can fit in. Kilman and Collins is an exceptional centre-back partnership, I think. Aït-Nouri, very promising. Still got the likes of Neves, Moutinho, then Donker, and then you've got good attacking options like Podence, Gibbs White, Huang.
It's just so thin, isn't it? There's quality everywhere, but there's not enough.
Jimenez is out, Chiquinho's out, like you said, Semedo's out, and now their squad's looking incredibly thin, and their bench at this rate is going to be full of kids for the start of the season. And there's obviously still a chance that Gibbs White will leave. Forest are heavily linked. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that one, but I can see it already.
I think he'll stay.
I don't see him going Forest.
They'll brand that as a new signing. That'll be their new winger signing.
I've seen that before.
Introduce him out.
Obviously, there are Wolves fans out there listening who will know more than me. But from an outside looking in, again, another disappointing summer it's been so far. But again, there's still time, as I keep saying. But right now, again, another team that's supposedly looking to break into Europe but aren't showing it in the transfer market. So maybe we'll be proved wrong, but we will see. We're going to move on from clubs that aren't spending to clubs that are spending, who don't have facilities to spend. On Barcelona, who since we last recorded have managed to stumble up about 150 million quid's worth of transfer fees for players when they can't even pay their own players the money. I mean, this situation is absolutely ridiculous, and it's annoying me with the Frankie de Jong saga. I can't imagine how much Chelsea fans are absolutely sick of it after they stole 3 targets from under their noses when they can't really afford to.
Who were the 3? There was
Rafinha, Lewandowski-ish, and Koundé. But Koundé, Rafinha, obviously being the main ones.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was real, but did they actually like that post about Chelsea going in for Far?
I didn't double check, but I think it was.
If you hadn't seen it surfaced on Twitter of somebody posting about Chelsea being interested in Fofana, the left centre back, and Barcelona's official account seemed to like the post.
It was Sky Sports as well.
If that is real, that is phenomenal. But I'm not sure. But again, I'm not massively clued up still on this situation. But it just looks like they're screwing themselves over long term to spend money now. Like, do you think there's a serious chance in the next 4 to 5 years that Barcelona could be in serious trouble? Because it looks like there will be, unless they can continue to find loopholes to get out of it.
Are they not in serious trouble this year, though?
They're supposed to be.
Exactly.
But they're finding this money from somewhere. They're not paying players.
I think they're getting the money because, from what I've heard at least, they're selling TV rights, which are meant to be in a few years' time. So they're getting a lot of money from that. But
haven't they sold part of the stadium as well?
I'm not too sure. They might have done. I haven't heard that. But ultimately, I think when they first spended, although they spent crazy money, I think that was always just a stupid thing to do with the players they had, like Koeman, etc. I feel like with Xavi spending that sort of money and the players they have actually signed, bar like Lowell, which is a bit of an interesting one. I mean, that just epitomises short-term success. But I do see it working out for them in a trophy perspective. Whether it works out in a financial one where, trophies actually bring back that sort of money and they're not in another financial stump in 5 years' time, which probably will be the case, is another matter. But I think they've brought in some brilliant players.
But it seems like if you're looking at the Frankie de Jong one especially, it seems as if when they agreed to take this wage cut, his agent hasn't put a clause in which protects him if he was to leave the club, which is just absolutely mental. But I've seen today that if he wasn't to leave the club, they wouldn't be able to register their new signings. So I don't really know what's going to happen there because, like I said a minute ago, it's no guarantee that he will leave. So I'm not quite sure on that one.
I just don't understand how there's players whose wages haven't been paid. I don't understand where they've got the money from, but the fact they've got it, they've obviously done something, which is absolute. What can I say to that?
It's so wrong.
But they haven't paid. Surely you've got to get your affairs in order before you start spending ridiculous amounts of money on players, which to be honest, you don't necessarily even need.
They're probably finding loopholes left, right, and centre to get away with it. Yeah. It's quite disgusting, to be honest. Like, imagine you're Gerard Piqué, you're like a legend of this club. They're owing you money which they're not paying, and they're spending that money on a centre back that's coming in to replace you. It's pretty peak, isn't it?
But they're not kind of two separate monies, like the wages and stuff.
Well, it is technically, but it's just very, very strange. Like
the stature of the club really annoys me. Every time there's a few of them, and I think PK's owed something ridiculous, like a ridiculous amount of money, and loads of the kills. He's put his life into that club. He's won them Champions Leagues. One of their greatest defenders ever. And it's PK, if you were a real legend, you'd say no to the money. But what are you talking about?
Yeah, but
then you're spending 60 million on Rafinha when you can't even pay one of your best ever players his wages.
It is absolutely outrageous.
How they've got the money, that's fine. I don't care. I find the sickening part the fact they're spending so much when their affairs aren't in order in the first place. I don't know why that's not been looked into more. And I've seen Gary Neville taking a lot of flack of, Barcelona fans and Spanish media and stuff. But he's absolutely right. Absolutely right. It is scandalous. And, people get onto City for, different reasons. But this has got to be investigated as well.
Is it not more or less like FFP for the wage stuff? Obviously that whole Arthur Pjanic deal, one of the most corrupt deals I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
That was with these sort of clubs, don't be surprised. But with that sort of deal, I think it's because they've had an issue with FFP for ages, but spending actual money on signings, I don't think that's been the issue. It's just been the wages and stuff. So I think that's why it's like a different problem.
When did it start to go wrong for them?
Like, I can't even remember. It just seems like a blur at this point.
It did.
I mean, they spent 100 and whatever on De Jong, 100 and whatever on Dembele,
Coutinho.
100 and whatever on Griezmann, 100 and whatever on Coutinho. So there's your answer, really.
I didn't realise they spent so much on Dembele.
Yeah, Dembele's like, I think he's still the third most expensive player ever.
Is he?
I think he is, yeah. Behind Mbappe, and unless it's Coutinho and Dembele fourth, it's something along those lines.
Yeah, it'd be Neymar, Coutinho, won't it?
Mbappe.
I think it's Mbappe second.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. I'd love to see them go under the way they're acting. Honestly,
yeah, they deserve it because they throw their weight around, don't they?
Obviously, it's a complete different situation. But you look at the clubs in England that have gone bust, like clubs that used to be like we almost lost Derby County this year, who like used to be an absolutely huge club. And then you've got Barcelona just because they're all lovey-dovey with everyone at the top, just getting away with murder essentially.
If it wasn't for Messi, I would detest that club.
Yeah, honestly.
Like, he's the only thing that keeps me like slightly attached to that club. They're vile.
There's no saltiness from 2011, I promise. Yeah, we'll move on from that. It's a pretty mental situation, and I have no idea how this is going to unfold. Maybe it'll be AFC Barcelona in 5 years. You never know. But yeah, we'll move on to, again, back to sort of the transfer thing. This is, again, very early doors, and these takes might end up looking like absolutely outrageous. But I want to talk about some signings that are essentially overrated and underrated. So I'll come to you, Matt, first. Have you got any names in that haven't really got the coverage this summer that you think are going to smash it?
I haven't put too much thought into this, I'll be honest. I can think of obvious names, of course. I'm trying to tell you got any in the meantime?
It depends on how we mean. If we're talking from my point of view or like a social media point of view, because overrated signings, before he played a game for us, I would have said Nunez. But I think the reaction from pre-season games, which he's scored 4 in, which is weird, is they've given him a platform to, be an underdog and become underrated before he's played a professional game for us. So,
I don't buy into any of this pre-season stuff.
No, neither do I.
I still stick by what we said when he was signed. I'm not paying any attention to any of these pre-season.
Yeah, okay, I would go.
I've never seen slander like this before, though, when I play. Obviously, it's just Twitter, childish, whatever, but I've never seen, the weirdness of people.
We go overrated. I'll go signing-wise, Rafinha. I've got a few, to be honest.
Really?
I like Rafinha as a player. I don't like the situation. I don't like the move. I liked his move to Chelsea a lot more.
Do you not think he'll do well, then?
Yeah, but who cares? They're not going to win the Champions League. Like,
I suppose.
You've gone over there, you won a few trophies, but what is your legacy worth, Rafinha?
What if he goes and scores the winner at Istanbul Endesi?
Yeah,
I highly doubt it.
Yeah,
but I think he'll do well, but that's signing.
Yeah, I've got so many overrated. Lewandowski. So I'm gonna ignore Barcelona.
You got Koundé next?
I like Koundé, but I'm gonna ignore Barcelona. Overrated. So as much as I like him as a player, I don't understand Fabio Vieira's fit, and I think he is good enough to play for Arsenal. I think he's good enough to play for most teams in the Premier League, and I'm almost certain I'm going to be proved wrong. I just don't understand the fit. And telling us about squad depth, you look at the teams above Arsenal in the league, quality in every position, almost on the bench as well. But I don't understand it. I don't think, again, one of my the favourite player that I've mentioned so far. But yeah, underrated though. I've got a few. Have I got a few? I really like Koulibaly, but I feel like that's a really obvious one.
Same, yeah.
I don't think he's gonna, I don't think he's gonna come in and win in the league, but I do like it. What else? Not for the price tag, but I really like Richarlison to Tottenham. So that's slightly under the radar.
Do you think it really makes sense though?
Yeah, I do.
How many Premier League games is he going to start realistically? 12. Well,
I'm going to be totally honest with you. I said this before, and I'll say it again. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think Kulusevski is the player that he was showing he was last year. I feel like he's a good player, but I feel like he was.
He's an unreal ball striker, and he's alongside Son and Kane, and we're hitting them from wherever.
Which is fine.
but Richarlison isn't that's the one position in the front three he doesn't tend to play. I know he can play there, but the one thing I hate is shoehorning players where they don't fit.
With Richarlison in the Premier League, teams don't need money or, to sell their star players. You're going to be paying what these teams want you to pay. So, in my opinion, 60 is obviously excessive for Richarlison, but you pay what you pay for a Brazilian starting versatile forward,
and they're back in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think it's very Conte-esque really, because
Kante. Kane's ankles are getting no healthier either, with due respect.
With World Cup, with everything schedule, I'm not sure how he'll do too well with that.
Yeah.
Can I chuck a few underrated ones in then? Ben Mee for free, Brentford. I think that's massive for them.
Yeah, huge.
I think they are one of the teams that I probably already said on here that I do think may struggle next season. But I think we're bringing a player like him in. I think that's massive for them. Yeah. Really proven Premier League defender, bags of experience, leader, ex-captain of Burnley. I think he's going to bring so much to that back line, and for nothing as well.
Yeah.
Staying on topic of Brentford, I think the signing of Keane Lewis-Potter is really interesting. One of the best players in the Championship last season. Don't know how much game time he is going to get. It'd be interesting to see if he's a regular star. Obviously, they have already got Visser, they've already got Mbermo in those sort of areas. But if he does get the game time, I'm sure he'll flourish as well. I also wanted to talk about Czech Decore at Palace. I think that's a really good pickup as well. Fantastic midfielder in France last season. And I think their business in general since Patrick Vieira took over has been fantastic. And you can tell on the pitch as well. And I think that's another, a great addition to a pretty aging area of the squad. I think he'll do really, really well. The last one I wanted to mention, if I can find it in my notes, Nathan Collins as well. I've already mentioned it. I think that'd be a great pickup for Wolves.
I've just thought of one name as well. I mean, it's a very mainstream name, so I don't want to say underrated, but I've seen a lot of, discourse about him, particularly from the West Ham fan base. But I think Jesse Lingard playing in the transitional system with the likes of Brennan Johnson, with the signings Forrester made, I think that's a recipe for success.
They haven't suspended, have they?
Yeah,
they had to. They had to, and it's either going to go really well or horrendously. Because they couldn't really do anything about it. They had a couple of players go back from loan. A couple of players have left. They lost a couple of players on free contracts. They had to spend, and they've kept the majority of the core. I think the centre backs are pretty much going to be the same, with the likes of Joe Worrell, Scott McKenna, Steve Cook still there as well. They've still got Ryan Yates in midfield
as well.
I mean, obviously they would have kept Samba ideally, but I think Dean Henderson's a brilliant pickup. They've still got Ryan Yates. Might be getting James Garner back as well in there. Brennan Johnson's still going to be there. But I think the additions they've made, I really like the signing of Awani, the striker. I think Nico Williams is also a great pickup.
They've made some good signings.
Pardon? Yeah. Omar Richards, great pickup for the left wing back slot. So it's looking exciting for Forest, and obviously we'll talk about them a bit more detail. But Lingard is a massive pickup. I completely agree.
What I find particularly exciting about the Lingard transfer, just for general future football, I don't know if I'm overthinking things, but what I first saw with the obviously crazy amounts of money were reported, and maybe it's like 100 or 80. I saw one say 80, one say 200. I've not seen anything since. I can't imagine it's anything more than 100, but I don't know. It's probably been released and I've not seen. But the thing with that is what I find really interesting is it's a 1-year contract. Yeah. So you think of, I don't know, a big club spending however much money on a player, giving him 200k a week or even 120, 130. It's a lot of money. You look at the likes of Arsenal, you look at the likes of United having to try and get rid of these players now, 5 years down the line, and it's not easy at all. And ultimately, lower clubs don't have that same facilities to offer, 100k plus. But if you're doing it on a 1 year, there's no risk for it. Yeah, there's no risk. If Lingard, fulfills that quality and the money which he's been given, brilliant. You sign him maybe to a 2-year or 3-year. And he gets that trust and loyalty. But
I think it's a great deal for all parties, to be honest. Yeah, I think it's a really business,
exciting, new chapter of
and that's a player that's going to make a massive difference. That is a big statement from them. But yeah, we'll talk about predictions and where we think we're going to finish in later episodes. But I think it's difficult to call a lot of signings overrated because they've been signed for big money for good reason. I do have one name which I'll mention in a minute, but underrated ones are a lot easier to sort of pick out. I think Zarpellini, who we've already mentioned, is a massive pickup for Fulham.
Just on that note quickly, I know we did talk about this and they weren't brought up. I won't go any further, but I don't think Fulham have done anywhere near enough as well. Talking about Bournemouth as well. I think they made a few good signings, but I don't think they've got enough to stay up.
These yo-yo clubs, they're going to have to do enormous amount of business, which is successful.
They usually do though at the end, don't they?
I mean, to be fair, they probably signed Leno. They got Paulinho. They got
Barbu they've just bought in. Pereira.
Barbu,
4 signings so far. And Barbu, Mana Solomon from Shakhtar, Pereira, Jalpa.
Oh yeah, Solomon I really like.
Not bad business so far, but they
I don't think enough of it.
I thought I'd just add one thing in as well. Obviously, just signings, but off the top of my head, just contract extensions. I think Brennan Johnson extending for Forest is absolutely massive.
Do you know there's a release clause in there?
Not sure.
Not that I know of, but sometimes they're hidden and no one knows. And the second one I love is, it happened a while ago to be fair, but Florian Wirtz without a release clause as well. I think that's unbelievable business for Leverkusen.
See, these bits of business are as good as signings, essentially, especially when you've got a young, sought-after player who's essentially committing their future to the club. Because when Brennan Johnson, if he continues his form, same with Florian Wirtz, they will eventually leave. But these new contracts means that they're protecting the club as well, massively. And those two players both coming through the academies of those clubs. So, it's a great move for all parties. The one signing I wanted to make, and this might seem really harsh and really random, but I just don't think Diego Carlos is a great centre-back at all. No, I'm just not. He's the one that I looked at and I was thinking, like, they've already got a very rash centre-back in Tyron Mings, so they all want replacing. And then they've brought in another one who is very, very rash. Just every time I've watched him play, I haven't really been a fan.
It seems like a panic buy, but it was one of the first buys of the window. Like, he seems like a defender where you think, when you run out of time. But they've sat down, evaluated, looked at centre backs across Europe with a lot of money to spend and gone, him.
Yeah, it's a strange one. But 30 million-ish, I think. I just think that's
the toughest,
stinker, but might be wrong. And it's so hard to write players off like this, but
that's exactly that. Like, underrated and overrated. Because by social media terms, I don't know, you think a player's underrated and now you're seeing them get all the, the whatever on the timeline, or people tweeting about, or social media, people in general, just like, wow, that's a great signing. At what point is he overrated? At what point is he underrated?
There's no real gauge, is there? There's no real gauge. You just wait till the season starts. I don't really get involved in our ex-player did this in his first game in a new team. He must be dreadful.
Any new signing for a big club is going to be, especially for big money. Like, you can tell because United signed last year. No one was really asked. Back up left back. Ericsson for a free. No one's.
I love that signing. That's my underrated signing this season. Ericsson, yeah.
I remember you saying it would make sense. I never thought it would actually happen, but I'm very happy with that. Not sure how many games he's going to get. You've got the FIFA United fans saying that play him and Bruno's 2-8. It's never happening. But, yeah, I knew it'd happen. Donny's the sitter as well.
It always is, isn't it?
But as soon as United splash big money on a player in Lisandro Martinez, everyone's bothered and trying to score points by saying he's 5'1" or whatever people want to believe. As soon as any big money is splashed, the Nunez treatment has been nothing short of unbelievable. Yes, we have criticised them on the show before, but at least we're doing it in a normal, respectful way, not just laughing because he miscontrolled a pass. It's just
some of them aren't even that bad. I do find it funny, but I also find it boring. Yeah, surely you got better things to do than that.
I just recommend downloading Indeed at this point.
Yeah,
I saw Nunez fail comp in training, got 100,000 likes. It's just mental. It's crazy. But these people, I think Pogba started it, to be honest, because his treatment was ridiculous. And
this is up there with Pogba. Less abuse, but this is.
Do you remember Nicolas Pepe?
Oh, as soon as you don't get off to a good start, you're done.
Yeah.
It would have been the same with Ronaldo last season. If he didn't bang a 2 in his first game, it would have been the exact same.
I was still calling him a dud after last season. He's finished with 16 Premier League goals.
But no, there's obviously constructive and criticism is absolutely fine. But some of the agendas and my one piece of advice is just don't pay any attention. Obviously Nunez has had some not great games in pre-season, but for me, it doesn't mean anything until he starts. If he starts stinking up in the Prem. Yeah, that's the thing as well. He's looked like not a footballer according to some people, and then he'll just score 4 goals in one game or one half even, wasn't it? But the treatment these days is absolutely ridiculous. As soon as any money's spent, and that United thing I just mentioned just summed it up. No one cares about free transfers and 11 mil. As soon as
I think transfer fees, for the sake of people annoying me on Twitter, they should just be left undisclosed, all of them.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be against it, to be honest.
It's never going to happen.
So you make a record signing and people are speculating it's 10 mil.
Yeah, honestly,
Imagine that. That'd
used
be
to happen all the
funny.
time. Everything growing up was undisclosed fee, undisclosed fee. You know,
Yeah.
and
There's too
then
much
Clubs still
everything
try.
about though.
They still try and do it, but
yeah, I
it's
know.
never going to happen.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if there's any other signings you want to touch on. Maybe we can touch on Arsenal quickly, Matt. Since we last recorded, you have signed Zinchenko as well. Just quickly, that's a pretty good deal for me. In my eyes, I know you're very happy with it.
Yeah, I'm delighted with our business in general, to be honest. I think that's what I was talking about, the underrated, overrated quota, because they play for Arsenal and everyone's appreciated Arsenal have been doing great business last season and this season. It's kind of like, it's hard to call anyone underrated, bar potentially Marquinhos, depending on how he does, so it's a bit tough to really say. But yeah, with Zinchenko.
That was a weird one. Marquinhos.
No, he looks very strong, we'll see.
Is he going out on loan or staying around the
No,
squad?
I think he'll stay with the squad, to be honest. So that'll be interesting. But now with Zinchenko, the quality of the guy, I don't know why I've started with the quality of the guy. His versatility is massive.
Top bloke.
Yeah, love him. Met him a few times. Phenomenal. But no, just great player, really, really consistent, really reliable. Played obviously in midfield for Ukraine. Plays a left back a lot for City, and I think that's what Arteta initially had in mind to change him from a 10 or an 8 to a left back. And the way we want to play, you have like your Saliba and Gabriel sitting back, and then you have what's been current, because Tomiyasu's been injured. We've had Ben White playing right backs, so those three drop, and then you have Zinchenko essentially playing as a midfielder, which just accommodates to him massively. And in general, yeah, I think it's a great signing for a brilliant price as well. And I mean, you can do a lot worse than getting top quality City players, really. So yeah,
I mean, he looks like a great pickup for FPL if he's going to get minutes. To be fair, at 5 mil.
Zinchenko's 5 mil.
5 mil, yeah. I mean, if he's going to get minutes, especially in midfield, that looks like a great pickup. I would
one
come
more
to
name
you.
actually.
Go on.
I just got to quickly chuck in the name. It's another one that happened ages ago, but Kamara from Villa,
Yeah,
one of
that's
the
nice.
few sixes on the market. It's a great signing.
I think I think he's going to stink it up. And being honest,
I
tomorrow.
I don't know if that was you or not, but
no, not me. I don't open my mouth on Twitter anymore.
But I was going to say I would come to you today, but it doesn't looks like Paul Joyce wasn't lying when he said your business is done.
Yeah, I mean, I do think my favourite signing of the window has been Fabio Carvalho, to be fair. But he looks tidy. You can just tell when a player that age has it or doesn't, and he does, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't think he's I don't think he's the difference between winning the league and not winning the league yet. So we'll see. But yeah,
one ended up Firmino rumours.
No. I think this is his last year with us, though. Unfortunately, unfortunately,
probably is. Probably is. Fine.
Yeah.
What do you make about the midfield situation with Liverpool? Because Thiago's obviously age and absence. Fabinho's obviously age.
I'm gonna just before I answer the question as well. You mentioned Fabinho. I don't know what's got into them. This is a player who I would have had as one of the best midfielders in the world. And I know it's pre-season, but even then, the last season, he was just woeful. We've had 17-year-olds. I've got a few minutes in midfield in pre-season, been in number 6, and he just looks a lot more assured. But so I don't know what's going on there. Fabinho, I hope he's not declining. Like I said, Henderson's 32.
He's not exactly unless he's just peaked ridiculously early.
No, he's not.
Like 28, isn't he?
I don't think he's done. I don't think he's been written off. But he's slowed down a bit. But I'll carry on with the midfield thing. I believe that next year, even though we've said it for years, someone dug up a tweet from 2021 that said we'll wait for Bellingham next year or a midfielder, and we still haven't. But I do think that is the midfielder we're waiting for, and I do think that's the midfielder we will get. I think the wheels are already in motion for next year.
How do you feel about the Real Madrid links coming about as well?
I'm not bothered. They've got enough midfielders. I think
it is Real Madrid.
That profile though, to be honest, they have like a brilliant midfield three of Valverde, Camavinga, and Tchouaméni, but they don't have like that goal scoring 8 type player, or
If I'm being honest, I'm not too bothered about Bellingham. I think it will happen, and I'll love him. But I'm not too bothered. But the whole thing is, we want Bellingham next year, but we need someone else now. And I think more than not, it's like a shiny new toy feel for a lot of fans.
Yeah.
We could do with a midfielder if we didn't have one lined up, but I believe we do, and I think that's been in the pipeline for a while. So I'm happy with our options going forward next season, to be honest.
I mean, as long as you trust your transfer policy, there is no reason to rush into it. Like,
yeah,
when it comes to us, if we were waiting for the right midfielder next summer, I wouldn't trust it. But if you lot have obviously got your like stuff in order, so if that is genuinely the case, then there's no issue with that.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I think we are obviously a club that, I know it's a cliche. We want the right profile of player, but I genuinely believe that with us. That we had serious links with with Tuchel this summer. And I think he didn't come in. I think he would be a Liverpool player now. And it's not like we've gone back out into the market and dipped in and gone, we'll just replace him. I think we find a player that we like, we look at, and I think this is what we want. We need to find the right time to do that, what it's going to cost, how it's going to affect the rest of the team. Next summer, everyone's a bit older. Henson's 33. Milner will be gone. Thiago will be to 32, turning 33. Fabinho will be on the cusp of 30. I think that's the perfect time to bring in a midfielder, and I think it'll be Bellingham. But I think we're all right this year with our midfield options. As much as a lot of people on Twitter will whine and moan and stuff. And I've had my fair share of moans at FSG, but it's always they want something new, and it's not necessary, I don't think.
You've got Curtis Jones as well, who, I mean, his development stagnated a bit, I guess, but
I think I'd argue slightly different players, but I love Curtis Jones, but he's probably behind the pecking order, behind Elliott, arguably Carvalho now, but in different players, different games. We had this conversation before, just quickly on Curtis Jones, how he'll get dropped away to Forest or home to Forest and then start at Old Trafford, or he started at Anfield against City and then he wasn't even on the bench at the next game.
It's strange, yeah.
Weirdest player. I don't know what his ceiling is, but yeah.
I swear he'll literally just disappear for weeks and then just like spawn back in and put in a decent performance and just disappear again.
Yeah. But he's still so young, 21. I think talk about youngsters sort of changing the expectations and breaking what realistic expectations are like for youngsters.
Well, that's what happens when you burst on the scene, though, because it does feel like he's been around for ages, but like I said, he is only 21, and most players will start to get better at this age because he peaks at, well, not peaked, but hit very high heights so early. People do forget how young they are and how much time they still have. So it's a big season for him, I think, though.
Yeah, I do think if he doesn't, I don't think he's going to be. He's going to break through because we've still got players like Naby Keita who's looked really good in pre-season, and I think the pecking order obviously is Henderson in whatever order. Fabinho, Thiago, Henderson, Keita are the first four options, and then you've got Elliott, who I'm 90% sure is above him. I think he does like Carvalho as well, even though he's a similar profile to Elliott. I think you've got Jones and then Milner really, and you know how much he likes Milner. So I think this is his season where if he doesn't break through. For next season, I think he might be gone. But there's
not too much room for sentiment these days, though. Like you have got to, you can't hang on.
And I wouldn't blame him for leaving. I think if I'm totally honest, I really like him and I see a big future for him. I think the best thing he can do is leave. I hope he doesn't. Again, Henderson, everyone else getting no younger. But I think the best for his career if he moved, and he is good enough to start for a Premier League team. 100%. So,
I mean, we'll see. Yeah, but you can't really afford to lose any more options, I suppose. But we shall see. Don't expect too much in your corner. But in a way, that's good because you're very settled going into the new season.
Yeah.
Bit of an indifferent pre-season, but let's be honest, it doesn't matter too much. So
I usually love pre-season.
Yeah, I'm sure you boys will be absolutely fine. But yeah, that does bring us to the end of this episode. Obviously, first one of the new season. Last season, a shorter season. Obviously, just dipping our feet in a little bit with the new show. But yeah, we're back this season for a full season. Hope you're looking forward to that. Thanks for tuning in. As always, if you're listening on Spotify, if you could rate us 5 stars, leave a comment, whatever, that'd be much appreciated. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe and all that. Obviously, we're on other social medias too, as you know, so all the support and them are much appreciated. Our main social media being Twitter, so you can follow us there at TM4Pod and then find everything else you need to there. But yeah, that's about all. Thank you guys for tuning in again for the new season, and we'll see you next week for the next one.